My therapist tells me eventually the recurring dreams will peter off. You know, the one where you stand up in front of a room of 400 of your closest peers wearing a dress. So I'll have to remind myself to tell you about this one when I wake up in the morning, Keith. The good news is he gave me a bunch of techniques to help alleviate the fear, which is to envision the audience naked. So I've got that going for me. So on the plus side, right? So we're here to talk about the Wi-Fi Pro Slack. Both May and I, several years back, determined that that's me and that's May. We determined that we wanted to do something a little bit better than what we had for the community. We had Twitter. That was fantastically awesome. But before we talk about that, I wanted to talk a little bit about what the heck Slack. Anybody in here in the Slack group? Okay, so everybody whose hand is not up, you'll have a chance to get in there in just a few moments. So Slack is, I think from the marketing term off the webpage, a cloud-based set of proprietary team collaboration tools and services. It sounds fantastic. For the old guys, it's basically today's IRC. Right, it's a little bit better than what we have been able to do in the past by way of Twitter, right? So 3 years ago, Twitter was limited to 140 characters. You get into a sparring match on Twitter and you lose all sense of context and it becomes terrible. So in our Slack group, based on channels, right, we have a variety of ways to compartmentalize who does what and as far as various topics and things along those lines. So we can keep the politics in politics, we can keep the vendor-specific stuff in the vendor-specific stuff, and if you want to see those things, you can go see them. It's awesome. So we did this again because, many years ago, or 3, I suppose, we ended up, May and I observed that there was a lot of infighting and contention and incomplete thoughts and some really, really great things that people wanted to talk about, but there really wasn't a good way to do it other than, hey, I'm going to tweet, yeah, forget you, I'm going to go write a blog post. And then you get these shots across the bow on blog posts, and it was awful. What makes it so special? Who runs this thing? Again, May and I do. Who can join? Everybody can join. So we wanted to make a community that was open to everybody. And so if you are in the Wi-Fi community, or if you think that you want to be in the Wi-Fi community, we invite everybody to join. So it's sort of a come one, come all. So we've been keeping some rolling stats over the past couple of years on how the Slack is performing. And so this is just sort of the open, hey, if you all want to know what's happening on the Slack, this is what's happening. So we're about 800 users, and I'll show you the active users here in just a few moments. And you can see sort of year over year, the number of messages have increased quite dramatically. And so up to our 2020 stats, we're up to 206,000 messages, which is quite fantastic. And no, I get this question a lot. No, the admins can't read your private messages. We're on the free Slack, and so no, feel free to talk to each other privately in your direct messages. We can't see them. We compared year-over-year stats. This is 1 week prior to WLPC, which is a number of active users. So this is from 2018, and you can see that we have, it's in the 100 or so active users. The 2019 numbers jumped a little bit, and then the 2020 numbers, you can see that the 1 week prior to WLPC, active users is just around 400 or so active users, which means that of the 800 people, about 400 of those are active on any sort of given week. Excuse me, this is total since the beginning of the Slack. Who was bragging about the button? There we go. See, I can do it too. We can see where it started. We can see WLPC, WLPC, WLPC. We can see Christmas. We can see Christmas. We can see Christmas. We can see, obviously, the beginning of the Slack group there. So it's just some interesting stats as far as how the group is going. Messages about where people are reading. This is, again, 2018 numbers, and this is private messages versus public messages versus 2020. Again, in the red is direct messages. The line up at the top are public messages. And then, so this is 2019, and this is 2020. So we have a pretty consistent public engagement as far as where people are reading. This is the same stats over the life of the Slack group. So we see some pretty consistent public reading, and then we see some pretty consistent private messaging reading, which represents sort of a low noise floor, I guess you'd say. Where messages are sent, same stats, 2018. versus 2019 versus 2020. So this gives us a good split about where people are sending messages. And then this is what the lifetime stats look like for that. It's a big mess. I don't know. Can I join? Yes, absolutely, you can join. We try not to do proxy invites, meaning we get requests all the time, hey, can you add Bob? Well, we don't know what Bob's preference as far as his email address is concerned, and so we try really, really hard not to do proxy invites. Please don't tweet today's information, which is this URL, which is if you are not in the Slack group, you can go to and you can join. Joins are opened up for the week. You do not need an invite. You can just go to the address. If you have a friend who would like to go or who would like to join, have them contact myself or May directly. Or you can just point your phone at the screen and that will take you to the link as well. That should be visible from the back of the room. I tried it a little bit ago, and I'll leave it up for just a second. Everybody good? If you have a modern phone. If you don't have a modern phone, get one. One last thing, recently May and I had to come up with some rules of engagement, and so we have done that. If you're in the Slack group in the general channel, you will see some general guidelines as far as how we expect to treat and interact with people. After 800 users, sometimes some contentious things crop up, so we now have a set of guidelines. We also have welcomed a third admin into the group in an attempt to keep the admin numbers odd for a tiebreaker. So Phil, are you in the room? Phil Morgan back over the back. Thank you for helping us out, Phil. And if you need anything else, holler at me.